Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to Gift of Healing TV. I'm Sarah Jane, and I am delighted to be joined by Anna M. Klint for the program today. Hi, Anna.
Hi, Sarah Jane.
Anna's joining me, and she's going to be sharing Liberate Your Life. But let me share a little bit about Anna first. Anna M. Klint, seasoned energy worker and psycho-spiritual healer, thought she had her life figured out until the day Hubs walked out on her. In a flash of awakening, she realized all the ways she had denied herself and her needs, the painful codependency coping mechanisms she used to keep her shadow fears at bay, and how these old conditioned patterns wreaked havoc on her health, creativity, and relationships. Anna's path to reclaiming herself and realigning her life has led to a bold body of work she now shares with spiritually minded midlife women who are absolutely sick of playing small and prioritizing everyone else over themselves and ready to liberate their life. Anna currently lives in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and when she's not writing about radical self-love and awakening, you'll find her walking her one-eyed healer, Luna, aka the tunes amongst the juniper trees. You're going to have to explain that one. Anna, welcome to the program, and thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, I'm so happy. And since I'm on a laptop, I can say, look, there's the tunes right there on her bed. Hopefully she'll be quiet the whole time, but she often likes to interject in things like this.
Excellent. So I know you've shared a little bit in your bio sort of about what happened to you, but share a little of your story and why this is such a passion for you.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much. And I'm finally old enough where the story is really long. So I don't want to overdo too much, but I think you could say in a nutshell, highly sensitive kid growing up in a very challenging, emotionally and psychologically challenging way with split families and a legacy of addiction and codependency. And I like to say that I went to codependency boot camp as a child and I learned how to do it really, really well. And not to make light of that, but it's really, there's a lot of us out there who have this experience of really being taught exquisitely how to take care of other people's needs so very well. How to scan a room, you become hypervigilant and you scan the room looking to see where the safe place is, where the danger place is, etc. And that just led me into, an adulthood that was really where my relationships were really fraught. And come to find out, you look back over time and it's like, well, I've been challenged by health issues for a really long time. And I'm a highly creative person. I went to art school even, and I have a degree in photography. And then you fast forward some decades and you're like, well, I'm not even being creative and I'm not using those skills and I'm not feeding my soul in that way. And little by little, it just erodes at your sense of self and your sense of worth and what you have to offer. And I'm a servant at heart, and I'm a helper and a healer. And I was healing and doing all of that work and holding deep space for other people for such a long time, even before I was technically a healer doing that kind of work. And now, then you wake up and you say, everything is crashing down and nothing feels like it's working. And I'm so unfulfilled and actually brokenhearted. I'm actually brokenhearted. And I think that was what happened when I turned 40 and I had a massive adrenal wipeout that just like crippled me. And I thought, oh, this is a physical crisis, but it was a spiritual crisis. It was an emotional crisis. It was a crisis of the heart and the soul, because I was pouring out and giving into the world and giving into my marriage, but in a self-sacrificing way. in a martyrdom way, not in a reciprocal kind of way. And I had a huge awakening at 40, and I realized that everything was falling down, my creativity, my health, my happiness, and my marriage somehow kind of survived that for a while. And then, fast forward, and I am learning about self-compassion and self-love and having this deep spiritual awakening where I'm realizing that the divine is within me and it's connected to me. It is not separate from me. It is intrinsic. But my marriage is still not working. And I was still doing all of those little things in this one sphere of my life. I had changed so many things around me. I had worked on the codependency with my family. I had worked on boundaries. I had worked on all of these things, inviting God in to take over and let go and let God in all of these ways. But I'm going to control the crap out of my marriage. I'm going to control the crap out of all of these, because I was so still afraid of abandonment in that one sphere, in that one little wedge. Not little, it's a very important wedge of my life, but in that one wedge of my life, everything was still not working. And it's been 3 years, but his leaving, again, was the next level of awakening. And it was so hard and so devastating and so shattering to me. And yet it was still such a gift. And I love this Mary Oliver poem. I'm probably going to start crying. Someone once gave me a box of darkness. It took me years to realize that too was a gift. And I have been holding this box of darkness, or I was then given, in no uncertain terms, Spirit was like, here is your box of darkness, dear. This is it. You got to get this together. You got to figure this out. And it was like the last kind of hurrah into me deciding finally that I was going to come first. Finally, that I was going to advocate for myself, that I was going to use my voice, that I was going to get to know what my needs are in that realm. Like I had worked on needs in the other realms, spheres of my life. In this realm, these are my needs. And they have so much more to do with me being visible to myself than they do for me being visible to anyone else, right? But in intimate partnership, when that, arises for us, that's a piece of it. And so that kind of catches you up to today. I'm still, in a lot of ways, I've had many dark nights of the soul, and in my adulthood, I don't even count what happened in childhood because I didn't have control over that and how to respond to that. But I feel like I am here to bring light into the dark night of the soul in a lot of ways, because I don't see it as, I see it as a potential for love. Really, really profound love can come through a dark night experience. And I really feel that every time a human being is called into that kind of a dark night, it's for a profoundly important reason, a deeply spiritual reason. And we have gifts to bring forward. We have ourselves to become more authentically, to embody ourselves in a way that we never could before having that really challenging experience. So anyway, that was a messy way of saying some things about me. Thanks for giving me that time.
And I'm really certain that there will be those who listen to this and think, I get it. And you get it. You get me. And Chrissy says hi. And listening to you, absolutely. I was that people pleaser for, sort of the abandonment, the rejection issues.
Yeah.
And we were sort of talking just before we sort of came on air, and I said, that one of the main things, one of the biggest light bulbs for me was realizing that the only person who had truly rejected me had been me when I changed my name.
Totally.
And how many times do we reject ourselves when we say yes to everybody else and no to ourselves?
It's self-abandonment.
100%. So is there something more that you'd like to sort of add to that? Because I think we can both share more of our story, but this is about what you do and what to bring and support people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I see this all the time. And of course, it's so easy for me to spot in other people, and then I have to like turn the mirror back to myself. But this idea that when we didn't have our needs met early on, even by well-intentioned parents, well, you know, I'm not here to like belittle my family in any kind of way. Very well-intentioned, a lot of, you know, love there, but I didn't have my needs met. And I learned very early on that you don't get your needs met. And so why even bother to ask for them? And so what we do is we perpetuate abandoning ourselves and our inner kids, essentially. I really love parts work and inner child healing work because it's makes such a profound difference in our lives. But so this is the thing to really look for. If aspects of your life are not fulfilling to you, are not satisfying, and everyone has their own metric for this, right? There's no like one size fits all of what satisfaction or success is. Forget that. That's bullshit. It's how do you feel inside about your own experience? Are you living into your fullest potential? Are you loving? I know so many super loving people that feel like their love is behind a glass wall, right? Like there's just this inability to express fully the love that they have to share with the world. And that love could be for your children, for your family, for your neighbors, for animals, for nature. It could be writing books. It could be standing on stages. It could be all of these things. But are you feeling fully expressed? And if you're not, there's a piece of you that's been rejected. There's a piece of you that's been abandoned and probably ritually abandoned over time again and again and again. And so this is a great place to start, you know. And so when we're talking about liberating your life, what I'm really talking about is just creating a life that lights you up, where you get to be creative, where you get to be sexy, where you get to have fun, where you get to play, where you get to make a difference, where you get to be your fully expressed self, whatever that is for you. And so that's your first clue, is if you don't have that sense of satisfaction, what part of you is being denied right now? What part of you doesn't get a voice? What part of you doesn't get a seat at your round table of genius, your internal genius? So I like to ask that question, and I like to ask it of myself too, because liberation is an iterative process. We don't just, okay, I'm going to liberate. Tomorrow's the day. We're doing it. I'm like totally free. Okay, great. And then you get to do it again the next day and the next day and the next day. And it's all about these choices that we make. It's all about how we choose to love on ourselves, how we choose to allow ourselves a voice, allow ourselves to have needs.
Oh, 100%. And sort of as you were talking, there is a quote. And from the first time I ever read it, and I never do it perfectly, Alice Little. As a traumatized child, you were desperately waiting for the adult that would come and save you. What you didn't understand was that it would be yourself as an adult.
Yes.
And you talk about inner child work, which is something that I am so passionate about and support people with. But so many people think, oh, but if you're going back to the inner child, you're taking me back to the trauma. No. Personally, I ask people to connect with the child. It'll be after the trauma, when the child is desperately waiting for that hug, that cuddle, that loving voice, to know that they are listened to, heard, connected with, they're loved, and they're cared about.
Yes.
It's us as the adult that has to do that for our child. And I'm sure you've got more that you can share on that.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's so true. Yeah. We are the ones we're waiting for. You are the one you're waiting for. It's so interesting. I had the most profound dream this morning, and I had no intention of sharing it on this. And I'll just share a snippet of it because, dreams are weird and rambly, but there was a point in the dream where, one, I was holding Luna as she is now. And it was very hot. We were walking, and she doesn't do well in the heat. And then I put her down, and then she turned into my first dog, and she ran out the door and played, and it was just very sweet. And then I realized that I was still holding a child, and it was not a baby. It was, I don't even know how old, because actually it was me in a just smaller form. And I was holding this, and I just had so much adoration. And I don't have my own children, so I don't have the experience of actually holding my own child and the extreme unconditional love that we imagine, hopefully, a mother feels for her child. And I just was like, my heart was exploding with love for this child that was me, and not me as a child, but just a smaller version of me. And I've never felt in my life that level of adoration for myself until this morning. So it's sort of profound to be having this conversation with you, Sarah Jane, because even though I've been doing this self-compassion and self-love work for more than a decade, really, really intently and really consciously, I am still falling down on the job. Here, I'm already denigrating myself. I still have a lot of work to do in this arena. I still find myself saying things about myself that are disparaging, about the way I look, or that I don't, haven't reached this pinnacle of success, or whatever the bullshit story is in my brain at that moment. Like, whatever the thing is that my ego can latch onto that's wrong, that's bad, that's unfinished, unhealed, whatever the bullshit is. And so that's just to say, like, this is a really profound lifelong journey. Again, it's iterative. It is not one and done. We don't get there. There is no there. It is just us coming back again and again and again to love, love, love.
Yeah, 100%. And Donna says hi. So hi to Chrissy and to Donna. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. As you were talking, it's something I've started doing for myself. I've been doing it for a while. It's not waiting for others to praise you.
Yeah.
It's doing it for yourself. And so I try and do this on a daily basis. Sometimes I'll do it 2-3 times in the day. As I'm sort of finishing off my morning, whatever I've been doing, it's just like, you've done really well this morning. Well done. It doesn't matter how much or how little you've done.
Right.
Just do it. Because quite a few years ago, before we moved into this house, and we've been here over 19 years now, I came very close to having ME. And so seriously, I didn't realize how unwell I was until I came out the other side, because it was a struggle to get out of bed, and then I'd have to sit down. Energy, there was just no energy, none whatsoever. And it all started with, actually, if I don't sit down, I'm going to fall down. And that's a horrible feeling to have.
Yeah.
And so I went through all of that, but it's realizing that if you are going through something like that, you praise yourself for the fact you got out of bed. You might have had to sit down. Then you managed to get yourself dressed. Mm-hmm. Have another break. Get yourself some breakfast. Have another break. I was off work for 2 months solid, and then the doctor forced me back to work, but I went back part-time, and it took me 2 months to get back to work full-time. So it took me 4 months altogether. Mm-hmm. So it's not a matter of how much you do, it's the fact that you've achieved something. Mm-hmm. And it's so important to do that, because There's not going to be anybody else who's going to be saying, wow, Sarah, look what you've achieved today.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only one who can do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's great when you've done a workshop or something. Oh, that's brilliant. Or you've done a live program and people come back and say, oh, thank you so much. That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not about what other people say.
Right.
Are we supporting ourselves?
Right.
Colleen says, hi all, I'm here two in hot smoke, hazy Bellwood on Canada. I'm not sure what that means, but maybe somebody does. But anyway, hi Colleen, thank you for joining us.
There's
it's taking it from there. Sort of what support, what suggestions would you make to people? Whatever it is that is going on. And at the end of the day, our journey is what we share. We share the things that have worked or are working for us.
Mm-hmm. Such a good point and a good reminder. In the Western world, we have internalized the idea that our worth is connected to our productivity, or our worth is connected to our income, or our worth is somehow connected to some external thing that we can prove our value visually, experientially to others in the world around us. And that is a completely toxic fallacy, completely horrible. And I still struggle with it, even though I, as part of my sort of awakening at 40 and my deal with the goddess or God, however, was I was a working artist, and realizing that I was making art coming from a place of needing validation from the external world. And I said, if I don't make art, do I still get to call myself an artist? Because I don't ever want to make art coming from that place again, because it hurts so much. And I was like, okay, I can still call myself an artist. And it was a total paradigm shift, because it was disassociating, severing the connection between this part of my identity and how I had to move through the world, and how I had to prove that I could call myself an artist. And it was really powerful, and also hard, because, some of the things that we're talking about, our identities become so engrossed in, okay, well, I'm this kind of a mom, or I'm this kind of a wife, or I'm this kind of a worker, and I'm known for this, and I do a great job, and I overachieve, and I overperform, and I overgive, and if I don't do that, I'm not going to get the love and appreciation. Of course, people appreciate when you're doing half of their job for them. And yeah, they might not appreciate it when you start saying, no, I'm not doing that. I'd rather go out and do this, because that feeds my soul, and I'm going to go spend my time this way. So starting to, again, see those patterns and doing that deep inner work. So much of what I do with my clients is around asking these big questions. Where are you giving yourself away? Where are you not asking for what you need? Where are you outsourcing your joy, outsourcing your value, outsourcing your happiness? I'll be happy if you're happy. That was my marriage. I'll be happy if you're happy. And of course, that didn't make him happy. And so there was no happiness for either one of us. Right? So this idea that it again, it's really coming back to, like, are you going to be the one to show up for you? And are you going to be the one to take radical personal responsibility for your experience? If this isn't working for you, where does something inside of you need to change first? Because that is the only thing that we can change, the only thing that we have control over. And so if something isn't working, look inside yourself first. And that's not the tendency of someone who was raised codependent. That's not the tendency. That's not what we're taught. That's not how things are modeled. But that's the truth of it. If something isn't working, I have to look here first.
The important thing is to love yourself, isn't it? And we're not taught to love ourselves.
Not in the slightest.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, nobody. And I was raised a Catholic, and so that whole thing within the family, within the church, going to a convent, sort of the whole thing was about the one person it was never about was yourself.
Right.
And when we wanted to say no, we went into finding excuses as to why we couldn't, which again was, were we actually at times having to lie rather than just being open and honest? Sorry, no. We don't have to give a reason. You don't have to go into finding excuses.
Right.
It is as it is. And it was that coming to understand that while I'm constantly doing for others, I am holding two people back. I am holding them back from not learning to do it themselves. I'm holding me back because while I'm doing for them, I can't be doing for me.
Yep.
And really, really important to know that it is okay. No, correction. It's not okay. It is essential.
Essential.
That we do these things for ourselves. We find the love for ourselves. Personally, I struggle with that word love because I think of what happened with me as a tiny baby. Hospitalized for 3 months. We are talking 66 years ago. So it was around my first birthday. And my parents got to see me once a week for an hour. So they now know the emotional trauma and everything else that it does to children doing that. But my mother, apparently, she said, I'd come into the hospital, I'd pick you up, I'd cuddle you, and I'd tell you how much I loved you. And then she'd go back again. So if you're being told how much you're loved, but then they leave you again, every time it was abandonment. Every time they left me. Why are you going to trust that word? And that's at a deep cellular memory level.
Absolutely.
So if you're struggling with that word love, because I would say, I care so deeply. I really do. So care's my word for love, but it's a word I'm comfortable with. So if there are words you're not comfortable with, find the words that you are comfortable with.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah, and you brought up something else too, this idea that all of us in the Western world, even if we were raised by atheists or didn't ever go to church or didn't ever participate in Christianity or Judeo-Christian mindset, this idea that we came into the world flawed is pervasive, and that we have to earn our salvation. And speaking to you, and the word love for you, for me, I had to reclaim God as a word. I had to give God my own meaning because I experienced so much emotional and spiritual and psychological dissonance as a child in these conflicting messages around God. Well, God is love and God is all forgiving, but you better do this, 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 and this. And so then you translate that into your adult life. Well, if I'm going to receive acceptance and care or love from other people, I know I have to perform, because that's what I was taught as a child, that there's something inherently wrong with me because I was born. Number one, massive falsity. That's not true. And as a result, I have to perform if I'm going to be accepted, cared for, not like thrown out of the tribe and then starving to death out in the wilderness. Because that's how our limbic system, our lizard brains, the oldest part of our brains, our subcortical brain, that's how it functions. Belonging is such an intrinsic part of the human experience. We need other people around us to affirm us and love and care for us. And then the spiritual paradox is that we are the only ones who can meet ourselves in the most deepest, most intimate way and give ourselves that validation that says, this is what real love is. And yes, nobody ever teaches this, and nobody models it, because we are I call myself a psycho-spiritual energetic healer because we're looking at the psychology, which is just what I said, this dissonance, like somehow I was born flawed and I have to perform, and I have all of these psychological coping mechanisms to deal with the fact that I didn't get the validation, the attunement, the care that I needed as a child, right? The emotional care, the spiritual care that I needed as a child. So there's the psychological, and then there's the spiritual truth that I believe that each one of us is divine. Each one of us is a spark of the divine. We are all connected to one another and to everything, to all that is. And in that place, for me, is where love comes from. And that love, like, let me be a conduit for love. Let me open myself so that I can share that love with others. It's not coming from me, it's coming through me. And then, of course, the energetic piece of this is that I also believe that everything is energy, and that we can heal ourselves at the root level of cause when we work with energetics. But to do so without really recognizing and honoring the psychological aspects of ourselves, without honoring the spiritual aspects of ourselves, to me, these are three legs or three sides of the triangle that are so important to bring into your own healing journey, into your own awakening. Because this is really what we're talking about. Like, let's wake up, people. Let's wake up. We don't have to be trapped in thinking that there's something wrong with us because we had childhood trauma. We can liberate from that. Like, we can move on from that. We can identify and disidentify. That's really the first step, is disidentifying from those labels that we've given ourselves, and then identifying with a different label of a higher order.
100%. And the first place to start is with the loving yourself. Because, and how many people say, oh, but that's selfish, because that you know, that's exactly how the majority of us have been brought up, to think that way. But the loving of yourself doesn't mean you're selfish. What it means, it's the loving, the caring, the trusting, the believing in yourself. It's all of those things. If we can do that for ourselves, how much more can we bring out to others?
So much more.
It is, self is what it is about for each and every one of us, so that we can bring the more to others.
Yes.
The people pleaser comes from a place of fear. The individual has learned to love for themselves, think about themselves, take care of themselves first. And so many people say, you know, it's like if you're on a plane, they say, put your own mask on first, then deal with the children. Because if you don't do your own mask first, you're not going to be able to do theirs. So you have to take care of you first.
Right.
Then you can do, but that's the ability then for the tough love. I know it's a phrase that is used, but it's that ability to be able to understand what is you feel, and it has to be you feel, is the best thing for you to participate in with an individual. Because I was saying sort of earlier about, if you're constantly doing for others, you're not helping them because they aren't growing.
Right.
And you're certainly not helping yourself because you can't grow the way you're meant to. Comfort zone. And that is where too many of us live for too long. And that was my second marriage, was how I described it, was we were living in parallel ruts. His was lined with rose petals. Mine was lined with rose thorns. And eventually I'd had enough and I wanted out.
Yeah.
He didn't see it coming, but then it had actually been coming for a very long time. But the people pleaser of me, but then I do remember apparently my mother-in-law said to my mum, she speaks to the cats better than she speaks to him. So I'd obviously got to that phase where I'd had enough. It was finding the courage
to
say, no more, I'm out. So it's how we're not trying to say to people, leave a marriage.
No.
If you can, or a relationship, if you can work together, that's the thing to do. So what are the sort of suggestions and thoughts you would make for people?
Oh gosh, yeah. Radical honesty, which is not easy, especially if you're a people pleaser. It's really, really hard. Being honest with yourself first, and then radical honesty. One of the things that I see and that I have experienced is the challenge of communication between two people. And I know, like the people in my community, for instance, the women that I serve, and the men too, but I mostly work with women, but are so sensitive and care so much and don't want to hurt other people's feelings. Like, this is the thing, like, we really genuinely care about other people. And then you add in some people pleasing and it gets really messy and muddy. But being radically honest with yourself and then with others, but learning how to communicate. And this is the hard part, because we can't control the communication of another person. But there are tools, there's heart math practices for just dropping into your heart space before you have a conversation, having shared agreements about how you want to have a conversation, picking the right time and place so that you're not already activated when you start a conversation, honoring that another person gets activated, and finding ways to de-escalate so that you don't just like pour fuel on that fire. And if there's a real commitment, this is the thing, there needs to be a real commitment on both sides to hear the other person. Nonviolent communication is another way of communicating. And so it's messy, it's complicated. Humans, understanding your expectations. This is a huge one. We get resentful and disappointed and frustrated when we have expectations that are unconscious to us, and we're projecting that, or we are transferring that onto someone else and expecting them to meet our unconscious expectations. And then when they don't, we get upset. Like, that's real, that happens. So bringing a tremendous amount of openness, curiosity, wonder, and care. And there's something, like having a mutual high regard for the other, like starting from that place of a high regard and the intent that the other person has a high regard. This stuff is really deep. But again, the part that you can control is, what energy are you bringing to this interaction? What is your intention for this interaction? Do I want to say something that's going to make you, in no uncertain terms, know that you hurt my feelings? Then it's not going to be a good interaction. But if I want to be resolute in knowing that I have a need and I want to express it, and I want to do it in a way that honors the integrity of my own soul and being, and at the same time honors the integrity of your soul and your being, then you have something maybe there to work with. Does that mean it's going to go great? No. There's no guarantee. But again, coming back to like, what is loving to me? This is something I ask my clients to ask themselves all the time. I ask myself, is this loving to me? This food, this thought, this scrolling, text messaging, the social media, the job, the work, the everything, is this loving to me? And if it isn't, how can I make it loving if it's something that needs to happen? And if it doesn't need to happen or be a part of my life, how can I do without it? How can I change my habits, my behaviors? How can I shift my addictions, right? Into creating space for something to be loving for me. And for you, Sarah Jane, is this caring for me, or is this not caring for me? Whatever your word needs to be. But is this affirming me, or is this denigrating me? And there is a line, and sometimes it's really clear and sometimes it's fuzzy. And it takes this, somatic, intuitive wisdom of the body to say, I lean in towards this. Oh, I notice I'm leaning out. This isn't loving to me. There's something amiss here. And then do your detective work of finding what's not working and how can you shift it?
No, brilliant. Thank you. We're coming to a close. I think we could carry on talking for ages, but then the idea is to keep these not too long so that people. So, is there anything that we haven't touched on? Because we've covered a broad spectrum here that you would like to add into the mix.
I believe that we are at a threshold moment, individually and collectively. And, to go back to the comfort zone, to cross that threshold is crossing the edge of the known and the familiar territory. And the known and the familiar are no longer working. Whether that's your own internal programming, the conditionings from society that, tell you that you're being selfish if you're caring for yourself, or whether it's at the level of the collective. We look around and the shit is falling apart. And I believe that we are here for a reason. We chose this time and place for right now. I don't know why. I don't know why, because it's really challenging. But you're here. If you're listening to this, yes, yeah, all of this. And so are you going to heed the call and cross the threshold? This might catapult you into your own hero's journey, which is, hello, a dark night of the soul. But also at the end of that is your absolute brilliance, radiance, shine, waiting to be reborn. That's what I believe is happening, is that we are being reborn into a higher octave of who we came here previously as. And I don't mean past lives, although I do mean that, but I mean who we started this journey as. We are being asked to shift into a different iteration, individually and collectively. And it's challenging, and it requires a lot of nervous system regulation, and it requires a lot of support and being mirrored and witnessed and having the journey affirmed. And that's what we do in community. And that's what's really beautiful about things like this program, Sarah Jane. Thank you so much for making this available and for having these kinds of conversations. And I do actually, we kind of talked, am I going to do the thing? Am I not? I have a self-compassion challenge that I made years ago, and I would love to share it out, because we don't know how to be compassionate towards ourselves yet. Self-compassion, as if it's easy to do, as if anyone taught us how to do it. Nobody taught us how to do it. It's not easy, and it's iterative. It's not one and done. We don't just do a great job of it one day and then, we're good forever. We have to keep at it. It's a lifestyle. It's a spiritual practice, not a spiritual destination. And it's hidden right now. I might put it back on my website. I probably will as a freebie, but if anyone is listening and they want to opt in, go to www.selfcompassion.rocks. Self-compassion rocks. And you can join for free and take my 10-day self-compassion challenge and just learn all of these different tools for self-compassion and just have fun with it. That's the other thing. This healing work is so damn serious. Like, let's have fun. Let's make light of it. Let's joke. Let's laugh. Let's play. Let's find the pleasure in every moment that we can.
Find the child within and let them play.
Yes.
You said that was selfcompassion.rocks.
Exactly.
So that's www. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll send you the link.
Yes, please. But hopefully we've said it enough. But folks, if you're watching this on YouTube, then I will make sure both Anna's website, which is Anna, which is ANNE M Klint, KLINT.com. They're both under the website, so you can go and find those. So Anna, thank you so very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm sure we could continue talking, and I know we're going to be because Anna was one of the authors for the book that we released earlier this year, I Didn't Become Selfish, I Became Harder to Manipulate. And we're going to be doing sort of more work, all of us together, sort of over the coming months. So I hope that folks will look at joining us for that as well. But and it's about supporting people to be able to step into their own power, into themselves. And for those who are thinking, how do I get out of my comfort zone? You step back into yourself.
Yeah.
Your comfort zone is outside of who you are. And the saying, isn't there? Nothing grows in your comfort zone. So thank you, Anna, so much. And Donna's just put a heart, and Chrissy says, great conversation, spark some wonderful thoughts. Thank you so much indeed, Chrissy. And thank you, Anna. Next week, and Anna is going to be joining us for one of these. Today's conversation, selfish or harder to manipulate. And our guests, Scott and my guests, Chessie Roberts and Dorian Delorier. And they are two other authors, well, Scott, myself, and these two other authors in the book as well. So, and Anna's going to be joining for the one at the end of the month. So I look forward to receiving that information, and we can get that shared. Take care, be safe, stay well, folks, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.